Chapter 15. The Letters. Lady Tremaine went right to Rebecca's room looking for answers. She felt she didn't have the entire story. She rifled through Rebecca's vanity, her wardrobe, and even under her mattress. She was almost at the point of giving up when she felt one of the floorboards under the rug shift beneath her feet. She might not have even thought twice about it if she hadn't been searching for something. She pulled back the rug and pushed on the loose floorboard until it popped up, revealing what she had been looking for, a stack of letters all addressed to Lady Hackle. So it was true. Rebecca had never sent the letters. That was why Lady Hackle hadn't responded to a single letter in the last several years. What she didn't expect to find was the book of fairy tales hidden under the stack of letters. She sat there on the floor thumbing through it, feeling foolish that she hadn't believed Nanny now that she had this proof right in front of her. But then she found a name she recognized, Cinderella. She began to read her story. Cinderella. Once upon a time, in a faraway land, there was a tiny kingdom, peaceful, prosperous, and rich in romance and tradition. Here, in a stately chateau, there lived a widowed gentleman and his little daughter Cinderella. Although he was a kind and devoted father and gave his beloved child every luxury and comfort, still he felt she needed a mother's care. And so he married again, choosing for his second wife a woman of good family, with 2 daughters just Cinderella's age, by name Anastasia and Drizella. It was upon the untimely death of this good man, however, that the stepmother's true nature was revealed, cold, cruel, and bitterly jealous of Cinderella's charm and beauty. She was grimly determined to forward the interests of her own 2 awkward daughters. Thus, as time went by, the chateau fell into disrepair, for the family fortunes were squandered upon the vain and selfish stepsisters, while Cinderella was abused, humiliated, and finally forced to become a servant in her own house. And yet, through it all, Cinderella remained ever gentle and kind, for with each dawn she found new hope that someday her dreams of happiness would come true. Lady Tremaine slammed the book down. Nonsense! None of this has happened. Sir Richard is alive, and if anyone has squandered our money, it was him, she said, getting angrier. This is a book of lies. And what if I got my hands on what little money was left and used it to provide for my own daughters? What of it? It's my money. She was about to throw the book across the room in anger. Instead, she got up and took the book and the stack of letters to her own room, where she put them on her vanity. Then she fastened the brooch on her dress, right over her heart, and paced the room trying to figure out what was going on, trying to wrap her head around everything she learned today. She didn't know who to believe or what to think. This book was clearly talking about something that was going to happen in the future, and because of that, these fairies, or witches, or whatever they were, thought she was a villain. It didn't make sense. Just then, Sir Richard burst into the room, his face full of wrath. What is this I hear, that you and your daughters are planning on leaving? Lady Tremaine looked up at him in shock, grasping for her brooch and grateful she was wearing it. Nanny had it all wrong. The brooch wasn't cursed. It helped her and gave her strength. I don't know what you're talking about, Sir Richard, she said, lying to his face easily. She met his steely gaze. Don't lie to me, woman. Cinderella told me that you and your gawky daughters plan to leave the many kingdoms. And who do you suppose will care for Cinderella? What kind of woman are you that you could abandon your family? He came toward her menacingly, and she found herself backing away from him, afraid of what he might do. Don't come any closer. I warn you, she said, sure he would strike her. And what will you do, oh great and mighty lady, he asked. Do you really think you could do anything to me, or leave the many kingdoms for that matter? You will never leave. I will make sure of it. He slammed the door and locked it behind him. At the sound of the key turning in the lock, she ran to the door and banged on it, calling out for someone to help her, but to no avail. She was terrified and alone, and worried what Sir Richard might do to her daughters. She hated him as she never had hated anyone in her life, but she hated Cinderella even more for telling Sir Richard her secret. She would never forgive the girl for betraying her. Later that evening, when Sir Richard unlocked Lady Tremain's bedroom door, she was standing there, waiting for him, in her hand, carefully hidden among the folds of her dress. She clutched the bottle the strange sisters had given her. Sir Richard barely looked at her, his voice cold. "Since you seem to have dismissed Nanny and Rebecca, I suppose you'd better get down to the kitchen and make our dinner," he said. Cinderella stood behind him with tears in her eyes. He continued, "And keep those foolish daughters of yours in line. They've been weeping all evening. I can't bear the sound of it any more. I don't want to lay eyes on any of you in the dining room. I would like to eat in peace with my daughter. You lot can eat in the kitchen like the help you are." He took Cinderella by the arm and dragged her after him down the hall. "And where are my girls?" she called after him. "In the kitchen, where they belong," he muttered, not bothering to look back at her.
Mommy?
"Yes, sweetie?"
I don't need my golf things right now.
"Okay." She stood there for a moment, then remembered what he had said about dismissing Rebecca. But Lady Tremaine hadn't dismissed her. Where had she gone? She wondered if those witches had warned her not to come back after Nanny sent them flying out the front door. Still, something about all this doesn't make sense. The only thing she knew for certain was that she and her daughters were trapped with a man she feared would cause her harm. There was only one choice left to her.